have Jerry Caldwell, Lessons Learned with Point and Polygon Data.
All right, see my screen okay?
Yep, looks great. And I
All
think
righty, great. All right, well, thanks for having me. Chuck asked me to talk a little bit about why we use points more over polygons, some of our trials and tribulations of things we have learned also. So anyway, with that, we'll get started. So why we went with points. First off, some of it was multiple species that were all in the same area. We've also had different size infestations of those infestations in the same area. It also gave us a very accurate location to return to. So when we all started about, I don't know, it's been a few years, we had very limited navigation technology. We did have nicer Trimbles occasionally and or mostly Garmins to do the work. And then also the big part was we had a lot of historical data that some of us and some of our predecessors had already had logged in. So we went on a crusade to get all the points we could get loaded up into EDDMapS. And in 2013, we had 130,000 plus points we had put into EDDMapS. And we realized that we had a lot of points that were really stacked on top of each other really close. So in 2019, we combined 201,000 points down to 129,000. The old points were stacked to the earliest saved record and added as a revisit to that point. And the way that we did that was, this is what our map looked like at first. Here. So it was kind of a big, we called it a big red blob. So anyway, Chuck and his guys determined that if we rounded off to the 4 decimal places in decimal degree coordinates, that was 11.1 meters. So when you drop that, it put everything into the same point in that 11 meter area, 33 feet, which wasn't too bad. If you put me in 33 feet, I should be able to find a weed. We did that. The original data still has the original coordinates on it, so nothing was lost. So anyway, we narrowed this down by 70-something thousand points to start with. So anyway, I'll go into a little more specifics here. We have a weed around here. We probably have the majority that's mapped already in the United States. Square-rose knapweed. It's a very tall, very invasive plant. It is kind of hard to kill. It is very large, has lots and lots of seeds on it. So that's an infestation, and that's one of the plants. So in 2018, this is what the map looked like before we did the consolidation. And this is just a smaller area. There's thousands and thousands of points. We started out with 33,000 plus points of square-rose knapweed that we had on the map. So it's quite congested, stacked on top of each other. So it became 13,000 points for square-rose when we pulled them within 11 meters of each other. So then the map looked like this, and this is the 2022 map as of right now. So you can see the difference in here. When we realized that we were creating a red blob, we needed to find a way to show progress on this. This is when we determined that we would try and figure out a way with Chuck to do revisits on it and how to show progress on it. So you'll notice this is fairly new on here with the little pie charts on the populations, and some of these here you'll see there's 43 points in a spot here, and roughly half of it still positive, and the yellow is the treated and the green is eradicated or not present. So in the last 4 years on square-rose knap, we still have 14,499 positive. We treated 13,576 of these points, and we've determined that 4,211 of these points are eradicated or no longer present. We never want to take them off the map because we still want to return to them. So this is what our new map now looks like. So we're actually showing quite a bit of difference from this down to this. So Squirrels, knapweed. This is one of our original slides we had. They assumed that it all started at this silo here over. This is just right near the border of Juab County and Tooele County. This is an old photograph we obtained where there were a bunch of people. They figured they had about 5,000 acres and they would just watch it. We were up to about 200,000 points when basically Kevin and I next door started working on this project. So now this is that area right there in the middle of this map where it all started. And this is what our map looks like today. We started in the heart of it and worked our way out using the point system so we could navigate to individual points. Once you start blanketing an area and you need to go back to a specific point to locate that item. This is on a big scale, big project. We still do use polygons to define our projects. We worked with Chuck on we now call it project areas on EDDMapS Pro, but we can also have the capabilities of putting, it started out as KMLs, and we put road lines on here. When you're out of service and you don't have maps, you can put your, KMLs of your dirt roads and D roads, we call them around here, on there. So you can navigate a little better when you lose all service to everything. Some of these areas we go to are quite remote. So this is actually starting to look like we can actually show our bosses that we really do something for a living. So now, probably one of the biggest reasons that we did the EDDMapS Pro app when we started to do this with Chuck and the guys is we need to go back to a specific point and we need to navigate right to that point, no matter where that point's at, in service, out of service. This is a point that my guys found. They found this lone black henbane plant right at the edge of the forest. It's actually inside the forest boundary by about 50 feet. There's their kiosk. They took this picture, they sprayed it, went back and picked up the plant a week later because they were worried about the seed dropping. I need that plant on the screen, on my map, on my app, so I can go back to it. There's one other point down here below. They did the same thing too, and they haven't seen one there for a couple of years. So they determined it's eradicated, but it still shows up on the map so we don't ever forget about it. If we would leave one plant there without revisiting that one spot and going back there, the seeds on that plant, there's 776 seeds in one head, about 320 on an average plant. That's 250,000 seeds almost on one plant. The odds of having one grow next year in that spot are really high. And that's part of the biggest reason that we want to navigate back to a single point, in our case, versus a polygon. Not to say that points don't do very similar things that polygons do. They overlap and it's hard to determine sometimes quantities and acreage and stuff. So we're also this is our next task is a few places. We've got a contractor in the state that has this really neat technology that will actually spray and make a polygon every time it pulls the trigger on a sprayer. And it leaves little polygons, so it's really starting to stack points up on specific species. So this is probably next on the what to do list, but this contractor works clear across the state, does all kinds of stuff, does wonderful work for us and everything, and controls lots and lots of weeds. So we just want to make sure we get the data usable without making it too big of a headache. So this is a nice little picture I took a few years back. How would you map this 1,000 or 100 square foot? There's 5 noxious weeds and a couple of other invasives in about 100 square foot area, all in one little spot. So it's just a little food for thought here of how would you do that? That houndstone, Scotch thistle, dyer's woad, hoary-cress, field bindweed. There's a mullins in there, lots of weeds. So it's just kind of a food for thought. So anyway, thanks to our sponsors that we have, the Forest and UDAF, and UDAF's a big supporter of us and these projects, and they supply a lot of money for us to help do these projects with EDDMapS, with Chuck and the gang there. So anyway, all right, thank you. That's it for me.